With Honkai Star Rail coming out at the end of April, I've decided to create a guide for any new players that are looking to reroll and perhaps are wondering how good each of the 5 stars are. The criteria I will be using are based on their ease of build, value of their kits, usage in Forgotten Halls and Simulated Universe, and their future viability. I will be also ranking them based on the 4 outcomes within the initial version, which are pulling for CR, Jinyan, both, or neither. For rerolling in Honkai Star Rail, they have done something rather interesting. If you're looking to reroll, there is a possible way of starting your account with 2 standard 5 stars. Due to the pre-registration bonus, we're given 20 summons and in which you are able to keep on resetting your account until you're able to get a 5 star within the 20 summons and then proceed to roll out the rest of the starter summons or the departure warp. The starter summon or departure warp is very good as it guarantees a 5 star within 50 pulls and all the summons are discounted by 20%, which will only have you use the currency needed for 8 pulls instead of 10. Just to also mention, the departure warp can only be pulled on a 10 pull multi, meaning that you cannot do single pulls on it. Starting with Himeko, a 5-star fire erudition unit. Being part of the erudition class means that she specializes in AoE damage, which means she makes farming super easy as she can easily clear waves within one skill or finish it up with her passive. Her ultimate is quite strong as well, as every kill from her ultimate would grant 10 energy as a refund. With World 1 and Heart Space Station's weekly bosses being weak to fire, she is also able to be super helpful in those fights as she can consistently weakness break and thus proc her passive. However, those are really the main selling points of Himeko. As one unique thing that Star Rail has done differently is that you're able to use other people's units. So instead of having to build your own or pull for a Himeko, you can just use someone else's and work on building other units that are better for more difficult content such as Forgotten Hall or Simulated Universe. All in all, Himeko's not a bad unit but not a great one either, since you can always just use someone else's for farming as that is the main selling point of erudition units. Overall, I would give Himeko a 3 out of 5 for priority if you're looking to reroll. Next, we have Welt, who is an imaginary nihility character. Currently, Welt is the only imaginary damage type character until Locha is released, but even then he is still the only imaginary DPS we have. However, thankfully, all enemies will be weak to at least 2 or 3 elements, so not having an imaginary character is not as bad as you think it is. Being part of the Nihility path, Welt specializes in debuffing the enemy, which in his kit is Imprisonment. Imprisonment is a debuff that delays the actions of the target and reduces their speed, which can allow you to outspeed and lap the enemy, effectively granting you another turn. Aside from applying Imprisonment, Welt's passive also allows him to deal more damage against those who are slowed, which can be from Imprisonment or from elsewhere. But there's one issue with characters that specializes in debuffs, the effectiveness and effect resist stat. What that means is that enemies can and will be able to resist your debuffs at one point or another, effectively costing you a turn or perhaps the whole run. Alongside resistance and such, eventually there may be bosses that are straight up immune to certain debuffs, making the path lose its value. However, Welt is still a rather good character, being the only imaginary sub DPS and debuffer as we do not have a lot of characters that can slow. All in all, a 3.5 to possibly a 4 out of 5 for a priority of rerolling. Next, we have Bronya, a Harmony Wind unit that specializes in buffing allies by giving them action forwarding and damage increase. Quite frankly, Bronya's element doesn't really matter as by being part of the Harmony path, she will be mostly using her skills and ultimate to buff allies and rarely attack herself. Her skill dispels a debuff from a single ally and advances their action by 100% and gives them a 1-turn damage buff. Allowing your units to take their turn right after or before an ally or enemy can be key in battles, and currently Bronya is the only character that can do that. Another unique point of Bronya is her ultimate, which can give your team an attack buff and crit damage buff for 3 turns. What's really interesting about Bronya's ultimate is that the crit damage buff scales on her own crit damage, meaning her build will primarily focus on building speed and crit damage. However, there will be turns where you do not have the skill points to use her skill. That is where her passive and traits can be very helpful. Her passive gives herself action forwarding by a certain amount on the next action, and her trace gives her 100% crit rate on basic attacks, effectively removing the need to build crit rate on her. Overall, Bronya brings a great amount of buffs and value into a team, especially with her being a support unit. It is highly unlikely for her to be replaced anytime soon. I mean, just look at Shinshu and Bennett. Overall, a 4.5 or even a 5 out of 5. Gepard is an ice preservation unit that gives your team a huge shield and increases the chance of him being attacked over other units. Being under the preservation path is just basically the things of the game. He's strong, he's big, and he protects. Gepard's passive allows him to revive himself when struck with a killing blow, which works in tandem with his trace, commander, and integrity, which will allow him to come back with full energy, allowing him to ult immediately and is more likely to be targeted by commander. Now, you may wonder what Gepard's ult does. Well, it does give a shield to his allies based on his defense for 3 turns. Alongside his ultimate, his skill also has a 65% chance to freeze an enemy, which can be very helpful at times since being frozen would effectively skip an enemy's turn. While being able to provide shields and being an aggro magnet, Gepard of Preservation as a path itself is rather lackluster, especially with the freeze chance being so low until E1 and Fire MC being a much better unit in all ways. Overall, I would say Gepard is a 2 out of 5 in terms of rerolling. Ilia's sister, Clara, is a physical destruction unit that aims to counterattack when being hit. Being under the destruction path, she is an all-rounder having bits and pieces from all the other paths such as tankiness, damage, AoE, and control in a way. Clara's passive allows her to have a damage reduction while counterattacking those who attack Clara and applying a mark of counter. The mark of counter can then be removed from her skill, which attacks all enemies and deals additional damage to those who have the marker ready, and then removing it. Clara's ultimate further increases the damage reduction she gets and increase her chances of being attacked for 2 turns. It also gives her 2 enhanced counters that deal splash damage and can only be activated when an ally is attacked. However, a major flaw in her kit is a lack of revoke that can only come from her technique, ultimate, or an outside source such as M7, as there are no LC that currently affects aggro from enemies. Overall, Clara is not a bad unit, but not the worst either. She's one of the few characters that need some sort of setup in order to fully utilize her kit. In addition, we also have Susung that will be on rate of Jin Yan's banner and the physical MC as well for physical damage dealers. So overall, a 3 out of 5 for rerolling as you have plenty of options for her. Then we have Irelia's brother, Yanqing, an ice hunt unit. Being part of the hunt path means that they specialize in dealing high single target damage but having very little defensive abilities. Yanqing's skill allows him to deal damage to one unit but gives him 1 turn of Empathic Sword Link, which is his passive. Empathic Sword Link, when active, makes him less likely to be attacked by enemies and increases his crit rate and crit damage by a certain amount. And after attacking, there's a chance for him to perform a follow-up attack with a 65% chance to freeze the enemy. His ultimate is where the crazy stuff happens. It has an inherent 60 base crit rate, and if your passive is up, you also get an additional increase of crit damage for 1 turn before attacking with said ultimate. Building and kit wise, it is one of the dumbest kits I have ever seen in a while. With only needing around 20-ish% crit rate, you can allocate the rest of his stats into crit damage, attack, or speed. Overall, a really good unit that has good damage, ease of building, and also being an ice unit means that you can freeze quite frequently, which is personally one of the best debuffs in the game. Personally, I think he is a 4 or even a 4.5 out of 5 since you do get up to a E3 Hartha via Simulated Universe. But do remember, aside from Hartha and Yanqing, we really don't have a good ice DPS. Lastly, we have Bailu, the Lightning Abundance unit. Being part of the Abundance path, she's basically the healer of the game, which in her case, she scales off of HP. Starting with Bailu's ultimate, she heals all allies for a certain amount, and if they're not invigorated, they would be. However, if allies are already invigorated, the duration is extended by 1 turn, but cannot last more than a total of 2 turns, meaning that there will be some downtime regardless. Invigoration is explained by her passive. Basically, when an ally is hit, they will be healed by a certain amount up to a total of 3 times, including her trace. In addition, she also has a free revive that can be triggered once per battle, and her trace will make invigorated characters receive less damage. Moving on to her skill, she heals a select ally for a certain amount, then bounces into another or the same ally for a total of 2 more times. However, each additional bounce will reduce the healing by 15%. Overall, as a healer and the only healer that has a built-in revive, she has a rather big value at the moment due to a lack of healers aside from Natasha and Locha that has not been released yet. Because of that, she has very good early game value, but as we get more characters, her value would drop, and if you're not looking to clear Forgotten Halls, she has even less value. Overall, I would say that she is a 3 or 3.5 out of 5. With all the 5 stars gone over, I hope my thoughts and opinions may have helped you decide on which 5 stars you can get and lean towards, or maybe even give you more understanding on each of the characters. But I would like to add this on again, all 5 stars are good in their own ways, and having any of them will still help your account out a lot. I mean hell, I got your part of my beta run and still did fine. But like I did say in the beginning of the video, here is the ranking or tier list depending on which banners you are planning to summon on the 1.0 version. For Sealy, I would recommend them in the following order: Bronya, Welt, Himeko, Bailu, Clara, Yanqing, and Gepard. As for Jinyan, I will rank them in the following order: Bronya, Yanqing, Welt, Bailu, Clara, Himeko, Gepard. For free-to-play players or savers, I will rank them in the following: Bronya, Yanqing, Welt, Himeko, Clara, Bailu, and Gepard. And lastly, for my whales out there, I will rank them in the following: Bronya, Yanqing, Welt, Himeko, Clara, Bailu, and Gepard. With that, I think I got through what I wanted to say. Overall, I'm super excited to play Star Rail when it comes out, as I'm also looking to make more videos in depth of every character. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave a comment or on my Twitch, Discord, or Twitter. The links will be in the description, and hopefully you enjoyed this video.